Hey, time flies when you're having fun, and we are already on match number 4 of the day. Of course, that's Rent Free taking on One Shot. Tanner, Rent Free. This has been a bit up and down, not necessarily in a turbulent sense, but we go from thinking they're the best team, or the unknown team, then the best team. Then it's like, there might be some issues.
And now recently, like in the last 4 games, they've only won one game and lost the other three in
Hmm.
regulation. It's just not been the same team. Something's changed in the last couple of weeks with Rent Free. I don't know what it is or why they're starting to underperform. Maybe it's just that teams have figured out, don't take this team to bank. And that's just simply what it is. And they're just like a bank and Chalet team only. But we will see. This is one of those games we've been hyping up since, the first few play days because both Rent Free and One Shot were teams that went undefeated. Going through the roster, however, I made Filthy my highlight player. And the reason I wanted to do that is because recently in the last couple of performances, it feels like he's like a do it all, like the do it all man. Like he's showing up early on, he's getting a lot of impact frags, he's clutching up for the team, he's putting up some absolute big numbers, which is kind of concerning because he's got other players on his team, which I'll talk about a little bit more in my critical point, that need to start showing up in a big way too. And
Hmm.
I don't know. I feels like it's like a one man show, maybe Twist showing up there a little bit, but there needs to be more from this team.
Now, One Shot, who came out of the gate swinging as well, as Tanner said, didn't drop a match for quite a while. Even when they did drop a match, it just seemed normal. At some point, they've got to lose, and they haven't really tailed off. At least it seems to me, Connor.
Yeah, they've kind of been silent killers because they've been a game behind the entire stage. Most teams, which is why they're playing two here on the final play day. And so you always see them in like third place and fourth place, and you're like, they're pretty good. They aren't quite the best team in CL, but after today, they could very well be all the way up at the top if they would just win both games of regulation. They have the round differential to be dominant. And overall, when you look at their roster, it makes sense that they should be a dominant team. All these players are incredibly talented. I think pretty much everybody here could transition back into a T1 aspect or either into a T1 team or back into T1, kind of like their man NVK, who some people said had no gas left in the tank, but he's been proving people wrong. He's doing pretty well for himself, a lot better than what we saw last stage and a lot better than when we last saw him on X set.
Mhm. Okay, so let's break it down with these teams. Tanner, I wonder too if maybe the struggles of Rent Free, maybe you have that blissful ignorance when you all start off together because everything's great, everything's rolling, and then you haven't dealt with adversity yet. It hasn't come early. So when the adversity comes, maybe they struggle to deal with it a bit.
I don't know if that's the issue. I mean, they did have some games where, like, especially beginning of the stage, where they had some really successful comeback victories where, maybe
Yeah.
they're down 5-2 or, they're down 6-2 and they managed to pull it out in overtime. But recently, it just feels like there's like a lack of communication, a lack of focus and team play that's kind of holding them back. And specifically for my first point, I wanted to talk about the slow starts. I know One Shot's had slow starts of their own, which is why this is a critical point for me. We need more than just Twiz and Filthy showing up in the first round. If they're the only two that show up in the first round, One Shot have a potential to roll right all over them. And
Mhm.
basically, it can't be just a Filthy Twist show. So I need Dexter, I need the Butters, I need the Max Lees to kind of show up and be impactful. And then the last thing they need to do is they need to find a way to not throw rounds. Whether that, like last play day when they were playing against Airwise, they threw a 1v3 to Reed, and then they threw a 2v4 to both Tones, and I believe it was Freak. And it's just like these are rounds that they need to claw back. Like it should have been in their favor, especially on a defensive half with no grenades, no like extra utility. Like it was just pure gunfights. They need to find a way to collect these trades a little bit cleaner so that way they're closing out these rounds that are in their favor at this time.
Mhm. So yeah, a lot of comparable points when you're looking at these two teams, Connor. A lot of like similarities. What are your thoughts moving over to One Shot?
Well, first off, they need to make sure that they can find a way to close out those close rounds with the man advantages. They've been
Mhm.
pretty dominant on the attacking side for
You
the
stealing my
early round.
points?
Hmm?
You stealing my points?
No, I think I actually had something different. Yes, I had early round present must be dominant and it needs to stay that way because for One Shot in their last couple of games, NVK as well as Razor on the attacking side in particular have looked pretty dang good. Razor 4-1 on attacking entry and NVK 2-0. Those are pretty good numbers. And going up against the man, the myth, the legend, Dexter on the side of Rent Free should kind of seem like a daunting task, but recently he's been falling off just a little bit. He might be carried by his first 2 weeks where he was like plus 13 on entry, and he's plus 14. He's kind of not going up or down, he's going neutral, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but he isn't as dominant as it might seem. And one shot, if they get that ball rolling on the attack, they're going to look a lot better. Because guess what, Tanner? Guess how
Mm.
many points one shot need today?
I'm going to guess by your critical point, all 3 points.
They do need all 3 points. They have Dark Zero syndrome. It's unfortunate. They've been going to OT too much. We haven't seen them get a regulation win since like Playday 3 or 4, and it needs to change today.
Okay, I'll stick with you, Connor, for the map veto since I've gone to Tanner already. So with this map veto, Tanner brought up don't bring them to bank, but I think that they struggled more recently on their banks near that tail end of a 5 streak. Maybe they should look to go there.
And honestly, I really like One Shot's bank, so I don't see them banning this. I think it'll most likely be a rent-free ban, and that's exactly right. It's up to Chalet and it's up to bank, which, you think about it, for rent-free, those are their 2 maps. I made a post really early on, but when I was watching Gamers Without Borders and Rent-Free was just now going through quals, and we were like, okay, yeah, they're in Challenger League now. You don't take this roster to Chalet. However, you really shouldn't take One Shot to Chalet either. They have left this map up essentially every single play day this stage. The only 2 times that they banned it, it was a 4th ban, which means that they were just down to the last little bit, and they're like, we'd rather play the other map, because it was essentially the 50-50, and they're like, yeah, we'd rather play Clubhouse, we'd rather play Theme Park today, blada blada. But for One Shot, it's always been a pretty dang strong map for them, and I think it's going to be a really great matchup for both of these teams.
Can I just interrupt there? Until recently, One Shot just did recently lose this map to Reality TV. They lost a 7-5 in regulation. They're managing only to get 2 rounds on the attacking half, which is, this is an attacker side of map. You should be getting at least 4. So,
well, then what's your prediction, Tanner? Is this a toss-up map for these 2 teams?
Kind of. I mean, it really shouldn't be this 50-50 as it is, or sorry, this one-sided as it is right now.
Because like this is 50-50.
It really shouldn't be, because both of these teams are in the same point in the standings. Well, recently, One Shot has demonstrated that they're kind of back on the upswing with how they've been playing on the last play day. Whereas Rent Free has definitely looked like they're on the declining slopes, and especially with them starting to lose points and starting to lose hope for the stage 3 playoffs. I doubt their motivation's entirely there to be practicing all the time. A lot of these T1 teams are looking for tryouts at this time, so maybe some of these guys like Dexter or Twizzed or Filthy, they're getting tryouts, so maybe they're not getting to practice as much, and they're trying to put their emphasis there. So that's why I've got it as One Shot, because they're still in the playoff picture, and these games and these points still really matter to them.
Connor, thoughts on Rent Free?
I don't like the excuse of, oh, they're not trying, they're not scrimming, and for that reason, I'm going to change my... Just kidding. I'm not going to. I'm still all in on One Shot. I saw your face for a second, Brim. I wanted to give you that little bit of a tease.
It's like a gambler's itch or something. I'm like, yes, come on, go all in.
That means production that Brim should be the one to change.
No,
he should be the one to change. Indeed.
Hey, I'll have you know that this week I actually 100% made my own choices.
That's good.
It's amazing.
It's impressive.
I went out.
Baby's first steps.
Scary. It was scary. I went all out on my own, and my knees were trembling, and I'm trying to type in the letters, and it was getting really difficult, but I made those predictions 100% on my own.
I mean, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. And for One Shot, they have to come in and they gotta win in regulation. This is a team that doesn't have aspirations for a silver medal or a bronze medal. They're all about that gold. It's the only thing that's on their mind. And I think with the slump in form that we've seen with Rent Free, people have started to figure out their play style. People have started to figure out what they do on certain maps. And what we've seen from Bank is that they do the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's probably going to be in a similar vein for Chalet. With One Shot, if Kilo and a couple of the other guys watch the VOD, it's probably going to look pretty dang similar to what we're going to see today.
Okay, Tanner, you did bring up that Rent Free is in their downswing, but what about the possibility that, One Shot's kind of been holding on to it, Rent Free is due for, I wouldn't say a comeback, because it's not like they went anywhere. They're still like middle of the top, I would say. But, what if this is the match where they say, hey, let's just get it together?
I mean, that's entirely possible. Chalet is a map that's very simple from a strategic point of view. It's got a lot of rat potential. Like we talked about this earlier. You can come in through the basement. There's a lot of dynamic entry points. You can Amaru in through solar. You can get creative with how they like to enter, and that's going to favor RentFree heavily in that side. And I also want to say, like yes, we're saying it's going to be a one-shot game, but this game could go either way. To be completely honest with you, it's whoever shows up first. Last time One Shot played this map, they went 11 rounds. Sorry, they went 2 whole rounds before they got their first kill. They lost 11 bodies before they got their first kill. So it was 2 flawless rounds back to back. They just didn't show up at the beginning. If that's the one shot we're going to see today, then RentFree absolutely could pull this away and probably could win in regulation.
It is interesting that you talk about those rat points and the dynamic entry points of Chalet, because Connor, I remember old Chalet, which just felt like funnels. You're just funneled one direction, you're funneled another direction. But I love this dynamic about the Chalet that we have today, where the map's your oyster, right? Like you can make a lot of use of different points on this map.
Yeah, exactly. It's not nearly as linear of a map as you would see, where it was kind of, you'd have smoke plants and the nitro cell. You had to just pray that somebody shot it so you didn't die on a basement attack trying to get the bomb down. And overall, it's just a little bit more fun. It's a little bit more fluid. And sure, there's still some breaching shenanigans that you can have on either the top floor and actually all the bomb sites, either all the way downstairs in basement. You can try to have impact tricks or something like that going towards the kitchen bomb site, and even upstairs if you want to go to master. And then there's bar and games with the vertical play, all this fun stuff. I like how the meta has evolved kind of away from just sitting behind shields as well on this map. That was, Tanner, probably something you understood very well of, hey, yeah, we got to bring like 3 or 4 shields or else there's no way we're going to be able to win a defensive round.
Well, we are ready to get into the game now. The players are ready to go. RentFree one shot. We are going to Chalet, and now we'll throw it over to John and Carter.
Now, John, I know we started deviating away from it as the guests talked about something that mattered, but you forgot every single one of us voted one shot. And you know what I smell there, John?
Yeah.
I smell opportunity. I smell opportunity in the air right now. And I think, because of that, I'm switching my prediction to RentFree. Preston, throw it up. I'm doing it. I'm breaking away from the pack. I think
You will
mostly
be the lamb.
because
Thank you.
I will.
My prediction,
will,
Elo,
John.
humbly bows to you.
Dude,
Very thoughtful.
all I'm saying, when Dexter drops 15 and he's like Venom dunking on Spider-Man in that photo, I'm going to look like a genius. by the end
Get
of
somebody to edit that in together too. That would be great. I would take that L quite proudly. But in particular, Dexter has been taking a couple L's here and there, especially on the entry game too, and it has been showing some signs of weakness altogether for RentFree. So if we can't see not only that consistency by RentFree, for example, or even that comfortability when they try to go in for those entry kills, this could be a very disastrous game for them altogether. But the same applies for one shot. You know, we take a look all the way back, you know, Playdays 1 through 2, they were very strong at closing out games. And now we're seeing matches where they go the full distance in OT and just barely scrape away a victory. So there is a lot of potential for both teams, like the analyst was saying, but I feel like in terms of consistency, one shot, they just have that slight upper hand against RentFree, even going to such an aggressive map like Chalet, Carter.
But to be fair, like Tanner said as well, one shot in their last bout on Chalet in particular, were not a great attacking team against PTK, and that's the side they're starting on right now. They do have a couple bans coming through as well. No Thatcher or Hard Breach like we see on many maps. Instead, a Flores and a Nook taken off the board by both respective teams. Valkyrie followed up fairly soon after. I imagine the last one to round out might be the Wamai, John, especially since RentFree banned the Flores first, but no, it will be the Mira. And the Wamai remaining alive with no Flores on the board means that those nades become oh so important for one shot, and they need to be careful, because if they waste even 1 or 2 sets, that could be it without the opportunity to bring some Rotero drones.
Well, starting out here on Wine and Snowball, you probably don't have to worry about that shield presence as much. More or less going to be a very volatile roam extension bound to happen here for RentFree, since they have both the middle and top floor to play around. And they have a zombie on the board too, which can definitely strengthen a lot of those roam spots. You can look at library and you can have a lot of really cheeky one-way angles slash pixel peaks to work about. And the actual site presence itself, same thing applies. So really a lot of golden opportunities for RentFree to put themselves themselves in those feasible spots to take gunfights and simply win them in the early round to get rid of those viable picks that One Shot are trying to bring. In particular, maybe someone like Kilo, if he gets a little too aggressive and he falls, that could be a major frag to have altogether in this round.
I just looked at my screen and realized Adapt was playing, oddly enough. Like, we talked about Dexter, and all of a sudden, now I'm looking at Adapt right now. My mind had
no
very,
Dexter at all. Huh.
yeah, very weird disjunction right there. But anyway, like you said, still plenty of opportunities for RentFree to get aggressive on this defense as you need to on the basement side. You want to have a successful, in this case, round number 1, starting out on Chalet. One Shot seemed to be starting over towards the garage side of things, maybe trying to open that up first, then rotate over later on, and they very narrowly take down the Cade with an Electric Claw in pocket, put it Filthy to 1 HP, but he gets away, not scot-free, but still alive.
Able to at least utilize 1 extra Kaid Claw if need be. Metro Cell goes out, but that'll be a dud. But really interesting keeper barrier to actually stop the Maverick from opening up any lines of sight. You can still trick the wall, I believe, and getting it soft for, Sledge, for example, of Razor to get this opened up for later in the round, but at least slowing down that hard destruction is definitely going to go a long way for RentFree, as they've already burned around a minute on the clock, and little to no map control has been gathered by One Shot as of now.
Still focusing heavily on that garage side, though with some inroads onto the top floor. Razor and Swalen both making their way onto the second floor, and still some opportunities for RentFree players to contest that if they want. Twist playing close to the landing, or well, on the landing on blue stairs, and one player from RentFree playing in dining as well, so still some angles to contest, but One Shot, at least on the second floor, not really too worried at the moment, especially since one of the C4s from RentFree is now gone, and the other one is currently more occupied with his gun than his secondary utility. They can get this map control, well, relatively not having to worry.
Not the worst time management at all for One Shot, still gaining those important portions of the map, but if they do not apply this team pressure correctly on people that are still in that middle floor, things could be devastating. But a beautiful opening pick is found by Razor, and I believe some of that roam game has now fallen back to try to help hold on towards the site, so a very important kill and a little bit more map control gained at a good portion of time once again for One Shot.
Able to acquire the control of dining, but more importantly, that dining hat. Whether it's reinforced or not, I actually wasn't able to see, but Butters almost lands a kill onto the player outside of garage, playing aggressively as well, trying to find one more. Doesn't find anything, he'll back off and replace the breach with a Kiba barrier, though it's quickly dealt with by the attacking team's utility. Still one little bit, or one aspect, that RentFree can waste time with on the attack, but Butters might have just run out of Kiba barriers, unfortunately. He wants to hold this, he'll have to contest by a gunfight. He decides to move to the top floor. Right as the flashes go in, he almost confirms the kill, but all he does is tickle Swalen, who fights back a little bit more aggressively. 2v4 now, RentFree down in the man advantage. 2 bodies compared to 4 remaining on the side of One Shot. NVK just focused on holding the blue stairs. That allows Twist to get aggressive inside of the site and take down the air jab as well. Focus on anybody pushing down from that position. One Shot might have just consolidated their control on the front, though. They know Twist is in blue, and Maxley's all the way back in wine. Diffuser's dropped inside of the site, but still with the 3v2. They have the man advantage to cover, but that's very quickly disintegrated. Maxley cuts down Swalen, even 2v2. One Shot likely have to go for the kills at this point. They haven't even picked up the diffuser. 4 seconds left. Everyone from RentFree backs off, knows they don't have to get too aggressive, and all they have to do is fight NVK to take down Prod with the diffuser. NVK misses his first opportunity, whiffs the second. Prod does get the bomb down, but quickly falls to the MX4 Storm. As Maxley gets the defuse, he also gets RentFree their first round.
And good job able to at least still play together and hold those important parts of the map to make sure the plant could not go down in a feasible way. We saw Twist trying to enter the building and trying to immediately stick that case down, but I mean, because we just had someone still sitting in blue for RentFree being, there wasn't really any kind of option to have proper coverage. He didn't want to plant behind near that little cabinet position, didn't even want to plant near the trash can, which isn't even that good of a position either, as you can get swung from connector like we saw towards the end of that round, or you can just simply get wall bang. Not many people know that, but you can wall bang through that trash can to kill someone trying to go on that defuse. So not many options left unless One Shot wanted to fully rotate around and have someone walk down some snowmobile stairs with that case, which in 40 seconds maybe it didn't seem all that likely to be a good idea, especially since RentFree can get a little aggressive and maybe punish those people trying to rotate last second by getting some utility stacked up. And well, okay. Thank you, Filthy, for cutting me off mid-sentence. Twist immediately falls. And I think I said Twist accidentally trying to get that defuse. I meant to say Kilo. My mistake. But the same thing applies. Just incorrect name.
Honestly, you should just retire at that point. Like, you misspoke.
Yeah,
Dunzo.
that's on me.
Done for you. It is wraps. This is going in your performance.
Yeah, I'll put in my resignation now. There's no point.
July 23rd, 7:39 p.m. Eastern. Hello, speaks. All right. Moving on. Of course, John, even though Twist fell, maybe doesn't have, the most active utility in the round, but I honestly didn't see it. I hope he at least got some of his setup down, but maybe perhaps not. Butters, still coming away with that first kill, though. Not gonna lie, saw NBK retake that with an LMG in hand against an AUG, and thought that Butters was not long for this world, but he still wants the...
Still an important pick to have as well. That 5-on-3 could have been very devastating for RentFree to try to claw back from, so at least there is still tons of potential for the defense to have a pretty good start overall, especially since that is your only ranged soft destruction, besides maybe a couple of grenades, but you'd probably want to save those for players, not so much trying to break some shields or Kiba barriers here and there. One shot, though, they don't seem all too phased, despite the fact they have lost NVK relatively early in the round, still gathering good chunks of the map and still getting ready to try to attack this top floor extension from multiple angles, maybe getting those hard breachers ready to get that office wall opened up and trying to get people set up on, the highway balcony, for example, and also near piano double door to get rid of Maxley as well.
Maxley in those Kiba barriers, that'll be a very difficult prospect if he's able to use it reactively. And even though there is active intel on this position, if he can cover up these holes and deny these angles, he can still hold out for quite a while. Not denying the angles, but taking advantage of them right now as we approach a minute 30 seconds remaining. Maxley gets the second kill for RentFree overall, his fourth overall, as he has not died a single time in the past 2 rounds, and continues to compound the advantage RentFree gained by taking down the Finka of all operators.
And although there is still a minute 20 to go, still having people like Max and Adapt up above just to waste even more time and potentially force a horizontal take altogether by one shot could be very damaging, especially since there's still boatloads of utility for RentFree to slow down one shot from trying to enter the bomb site, really looking at Filthy just to try to stay alive since he has all 3 toxic smokes. And even then, you've got 2 Kiba barriers to maybe stop that breach from being opened up and a Nitrocell by Butters. Really, the possibilities are limitless for RentFree in this final minute.
And an electric, I believe, just placed on the bedroom hatch. So even though Swaylen gets this kill onto Maxley, and even if one shot get the second kill on the player up above, they'll have to use hard breach utility to open up that remaining hatch if they want that to be an angle. And well, there's an electric claw on it, so I don't know how viable that might be. Again, I'm assuming that is. Operating off of sound right now, maybe he threw it on something else. But either way, still only 38 seconds remaining. Cade Claw or not, well, my magnets are not, as Adapt has 4 in pocket currently. Only thing that might happen right now is Swaylen getting this kill, and excellent for one shot. Stop the push in to, 3 toxic canisters now all used. A kill acquired by Felky, 2v2, and a C4 from Butters remaining to be utilized. Becomes oh so impactful now that Butters is the only one left, 1 up above, 1 on the same floor as him. Only 15 seconds left. Swaylen still taking the time to acquire some of that intel, but Butters takes the long angle fight and unfortunately loses it to Kilo. So a round that seemed to be going RentFree's way, especially, well, even despite the early team kill, ends up going one shot's way very quietly at that.
Yeah, and really good job by RentFree. Not that willing to give up a lot of map control, but definitely showed a lot of signs of over-aggression by one shot. With the fact there was so much utility left alive, one shot, their best idea there was to get aggressive, close the gap, and try to work those 1-for-1s. And they did a beautiful job at that in the top floor in that final minute or so. We saw multiple sets of toxic smokes flying out that did deny the entryway into site for a good chunk of time, but once top floor was finally in control of one shot, they had multiple avenues of approach, and they put themselves in a pretty comfortable spot in that 2 versus 1. But at the very beginning, because one shot did struggle with dealing with Maxley properly in the middle of piano, it did look to be a very worrying round for them, especially since if we had RentFree just stay back for a little while longer and waste even more time on that top floor, they could have played for vertical, maybe found some extra kills, or at the very least just wasted even more time and resources that one shot just didn't have to throw at them.
But with Twist alive, they'll try to retry this dining defense, and I think John, with Twist actually able to get all of his setup done this time, that people playing on the top floor will have a little bit of an easier time. Have all those ADSs bedroom or piano where you want. I believe he's only placed 1 inside a master bedroom, outside of master bedroom. That's still 1 more ADS than you might have had before. That's a bulletproof camera you also have now to play off of intel, and Maxley was able to make some good work in this position, even with 1 whole piece of that setup on the top floor gone. There's 1 important some utility as well. Unfortunately, Adapt is caught off guard very early on, and if losing the ADSs was tough, all those potential magnets are now gone.
That could allow for much easier destruction on those vital key barriers we have brought up a handful of times so far in the broadcast already, and in general, just 1 less good gun altogether for RentFree. NVK plays down a quick little claymore and almost finds a kill on a twist as well, but only damages him in the arm for a smidge of health to be removed. So not that big of a deal for RentFree as a whole, but still being down at that 4 versus 5, they might need to fall back a little bit earlier on this top 4 presence or go for the exact opposite and maybe get hyper aggressive just to remove some of that utility in the pocket of one shot and maybe just try to keep them back for a little while longer once they equalize that man count.
Was trying to equalize right now, but oh no! Looks away at the exact wrong moment. Aiming exactly where NVK's head is, gets distracted by the drone, and ends up falling. Butters gets the first kill for RentFree in the round, but already half of it is gone, and 60% of their teammates gone as well. Some useful bits of utility, the one now expended, the C4 gone, the electric claw placed. Still 3 toxic canisters that, even if they don't win the round, still delay time. You can see Filthy, I believe that's Filthy, trying to get aggressive and almost dies to a DMR, aiming through those Maverick holes made in the wall. He'll survive for the time being, but still struggled to find an opportunity to force one shot back. Start moving up solar stairs, does spot somebody's head, misses all of his shots as the player he's peeking falls off the angle. He's got to now fall back down towards the site. Another dope call rings out through the map. Razor ring the doorbell right now onto the site. Creeping down solar stairs, trying to find a kill. Finds an opportunity, but escapes him as another player falls off the gunfight. Filthy retakes it, but then takes shelter behind the reinforcement. Flash is going in. One-shot teammates going in as well. Filthy has to win some of these fights. Does spot one with a nade in hand. But again, all of these gunfights, missed opportunities by both teams. But definitely for RentFree, it's far more damaging. 1 HP, 0 HP as Swalen cuts down Filthy. A 2-piece to round out round number 3 and to give One Shot the lead.
And once again, fantastic job for One Shot to actually punish RentFree for getting aggressive. Once again, this time, just much earlier in the round, we saw Razor find that instant kill on towards the Wamai, and not having Adapt there to try to slow down anybody and keep those vital spots opened up for real estate for RentFree. It allowed for a much faster clear altogether by One Shot. They had everyone alive and active, and because MVK was still alive, not only could he help clear through some pieces of vital utility, he was still able to sit on that backwards balcony to find someone falling back into his unloving arms, netted that 5 versus 3 position, and it forced a pretty early fall back for RentFree as a whole in that top 4. They tried to reclaim it at one point just to find a couple of cheeky kills, but they just weren't able to lock out any of those positions as is, and then they were pretty much stuck in a rock and a hard space as people were pushing in not only from the back solar stairs leading to trophy, but also the hard wall itself leading into dining room for that post plant setup. And although they still had 3 smokes in pocket, they didn't really have a lot of players left to try to keep those positions alive after the smokes dissipated, so it was just a game of patience for One Shot altogether. Still looking very good in terms of attacking on that dining room defense, but let's see how well they can do after a reattempt is now brought up here for the basement floor of Snowmobile.
For basement, one of the keys to success that RentFree had to clutch out what was denying various facets of the attack by Twist playing on blue stairs, able to win some gunfights in that location, and continuously keep important areas of the site and the map alive, even after an early round loss of Adapt and an early round loss of map. RentFree almost come away with, I believe, potentially 2 kills. Maxley peeking NVK, and I think Swalen losing some HP somewhere else. But neither goes the defense's way, but still, I imagine they scared them enough to waste maybe even 15 and 20 seconds of thorough drone.
Razor able to spot out at least one player on the prone, and immediately the coordination is there for One Shot before a single Kiba barrier can get deployed to try to slow down this Maverick. That was just well done altogether. A whole team effort for One Shot. It will pay dividends in once again finding that entry kill at a really good time frame. That once again is going to put in the thought of RentFree whether they have to take the initiative in certain gunfights or try to fall back much earlier. And once again, the info game has been spot on for One Shot. They detect Maxley over in the top floor, and it seems like they're ready to pounce on him just like they did on Butters earlier.
They have all the angles they need. Somebody on piano window, 2 players coming in through library. Nobody on solar or master bedroom window, unfortunately. That does mean that Maxley might have an avenue to rotate back. Maybe not back to the site, but at least downstairs. One Shot, this is still consistent with their plan, though. They're focused very much on library stairs, but that might be to their detriment. Maxley ends up hopping out and cuts down NVK, bringing back and compensating for the man advantage in the early loss of Butters. Might still take a lot to really mitigate the damage done by losing in a zombie early on, but still, making it even, that's a good start.
And still having adapted Maxley not too far away. Maxley eventually drops down. The same might fall for Adapt soon. Twist finding an important kill on towards Kilo. Once again, the case has been dropped, and now someone has to recover it. So a good time crunch so far by RentFree, but OneShot still trying to remove those prime spots from the defense, but they still have to worry about a huge amount of utility, especially that Kiba barrier, forcing Razor in a pretty vulnerable spot to anyone playing in that 90 corner towards blue.
And with a nade in hand, I believe he might have just tried to clear it. Don't know how successful it was. But even then, with that Kiba barrier gone, it's going to be very difficult to just walk up. No, doesn't clear it. Uses the nade somewhere else. Allows Twist to get aggressive. Slowly creep up those blue stairs. Maybe not to actually peek Razor, but wait to see if somebody just sprints down it and doesn't do their due diligence or do their proper droning. That's also not cleared out. Peeks out of main lobby. Fires a lot of bullets into Razor, but doesn't confirm the kill. Twist might still be able to take advantage of the chaos, but that's assuming he hasn't retreated back down blue stairs. Either way, he will. No, he will move up into bar. Gets 2 with the SMG-11. And now Prod, who got the opening pick, is now left resolved. Clutch a 1v3 with only 10 seconds left. Somebody behind him can come down blue. Spots one inside a trench. Damages Maxily a little bit. He's got to reload. Not enough time to even do that. He has to, but it's not going to feel good as Twist fires just a couple more shots to give himself a 4K. To give RentFree their second round, though. They've only won this site in particular.
And still having Adapt above to help feed information to make Twist confident enough to go for that swing and bar, it worked out extremely well for RentFree, as OneShot were still struggling to apply those proper vertical holes, try to work any extra kills to try to still clear out people over near blue stairs, for example. And once that didn't work out, they tried getting scrappy, and it simply was not enough, as we still had Twist putting on a stellar performance, not only towards the bottom floor, trying to end up the round, but also in the mid round as well, when OneShot were still in a fairly feasible position. Once they assumed Maxley had dropped down from the top floor all the way back into the basement, they probably had just assumed everyone else had given up that middle floor position as well, which was not correct, and RentFree were able to capitalize off that lack of information towards the latter end of the action phase. But they can't reattempt Snowmobile and Wine for a little while longer. They're going to have to go to Barn Gaming, which is a pretty good site for the most part, but a lot more teams have been able to crack down on properly pushing out against these heavy extensions you tend to see almost all the time when Bar's in play.
And I'm interested to see how they use that Ying, because like you said, they could clear out the extensions, could even clear out the site with those Candelas if they want to. But sometimes we'll see teams who maybe have trouble clearing out the Jaegers and the Wamais, you know, those ADSs, those magnets, the deployable shield, 1, maybe 2 on the top floor. And instead, they'll just send maybe a Finka in through the top floor through library and just push and swing that player. The Candelas can make that a little bit easier if they do try to still burn some of those ADSs and some of those magnets. You just throw a Candela in, and maybe you were able to take down Adapt a little bit easier. They do have one player pushing one in, but it's not from library. Right now, Razor has positioned himself inside of Dining very early on, as no one from RentFree is playing that position.
Well, Swellen able to gather tons of information that he could maybe try to creep his way up through the basement, that snowmobile wall, maybe even trying to eliminate people like Butters, for example, who are currently holding a nice position on anyone trying to walk over in through the double door leading into main lobby. As right now, though, not going to be a position all that favorable for OneShot, still trying to deal with somewhat of this top floor position at the moment. Don't think they have an over near library balcony just yet, but that could change in just a few short seconds. That could maybe allow for a little bit of a better clear on that top floor. But OneShot, honestly, it doesn't really seem like they're all that caring of that top floor clear. They just had someone over in main balcony, and that's it for the most part. They're going rather horizontal at round number 5, try to deal with this bar defense.
Rod tries to deal with Twist, and all they do is deal a little bit of damage to each other, neither falling after the engagement, and things remain fairly similar to how they've been for the past 45 seconds to a minute. Razor inside a bar, Rod peeking into mudroom, somebody outside main door, somebody outside garage, but beyond that, or until this very second, it hasn't changed there. Rod changed the equation by taking down Butters early on, alleviating a little bit of pressure that they were otherwise facing. Zoila now moving in down below as well. Will send a nade up the stairs, try to open an important position to look into the bar stock position.
A minute remains. Finally, Swellen's able to get that Maverick hole opened up, leading into the stock wall too. So that's a huge cutoff angle that can be held by OneShot. And finally, the execute is about to boil down as well, with Kilo trying to lead the charge up above, maybe to deny any of that vertical pressure you can tend to see to stop that plan.
Throwing in Candela after Candela, 3 out of 4, but not finding much. It might distract enough to allow NBK to push into the site, but Twist does not suffer any fools. He's more than aware of this position. It still results in OneShot, only losing one body in the process. 4v2 at the moment. Adapt and Maxley both trapped on the top floor, but Diffuser down for the attack right now. Something they might otherwise be worried about if they weren't now in a 1v3. And Adapt, while he does have the hatch, not really able to counter the execute much. It's going in through bar, not games where that hatch is able to watch. One shot would be able to position themselves, get this bomb down, and likely cover it effectively. Now start moving down the blue stairways where there's Prod, who is on low HP, but might be able to get the jump on the Wamai, who's face checking for angles. That's exactly what happens. Adapt moves over Prod and doesn't notice the Dokubi sitting right below him. One shot, retake the lead.
And once again, the coordination and general team play was incredible by One Shot in round number 5. The second Prod found that entry on Butters, who was really the only main problem for Swalen on the Maverick, try to get that stock wall opened up. The second that was no longer an issue, he worked his way up snowmobile stairs and immediately applied that nice little Maverick line over and towards stock single wall. Now nobody can play back there comfortably. They have to worry about a potential sideline attack, which could lose out under smoke, as that's normally the position he'll tend to play in. And also Hilo's role as well. Just sitting on that top floor, and because you had all those lines of sights opened up, moving all the way in through the main window or the main balcony window, all the way into library and that small connecting room as well, it allowed him just to sit outside and not really have to get all that aggressive. So despite the fact there was a major lack of a top floor presence, just having that one player up above that caused just enough chaos allowed a much smoother attack in the bomb site and still allowed the plant to go down in 3v1, which is tremendous to have a position like that for any team, really.
Final site, we have kitchen and dining, which unfortunately for RentFree has not gone their way whatsoever. It started out with a team kill the first time, and they ended up losing the round, and then they just ended up losing it normally the second time. The only site that's worked for them so far has been basement. All other attempts have not worked out very well, and it appears that RentFree are, overall at least, going with a similar setup. Only change, really, Maxley was from the zombie last time. He's flexed on an alibi and a zombie a couple times throughout this map, but either way, no matter the operator, Maxley's dead. Immediately spotted inside of library, and you lose an alibi, you know, whatever. But Maxley, not having those Kiba barriers generating throughout the round anymore, that's gotta hurt for RentFree's extension.
And exactly, that was a major thing that kept people, like, funny enough, Maxley, for example, able to find a couple of pivotal kills in that early round, specifically round number 2. Although they still lost that round, it did cause a lot of chaos for One Shot and definitely left a lot of glooming thoughts in their head as to how effectively they could try to execute, still needing to worry about that top floor presence and those keeper barriers as is, but that no longer is going to be an issue for the most part. It'll just be that horizontal presence for the most part. There is still an extension up above, but not to the exact same extent as we would see with those keeper barriers. Like you have mentioned, Twist trying to play very aggressive over inside of office, maybe working and killing someone who wants to push in through library or that top blue stairs position, but so far, no one's there to take the bait, so he might end up falling back sooner than expected.
Not just yet. Twist will move himself behind the piano, peek out of that piano window, but not finding anything. Takes down a drone, and likely now, I imagine, he will fall back. Half a round gone. Still trying to find an angle onto this player on the bathroom balcony. But with so much pressure now being mounted onto the site, exothermic opening up the dining wall, and players up top, down, and key operator, they might want to start focusing their attention on a rotate back.
Yeah, wouldn't be the worst decision at all, especially since they still have 3 toxic smokes and a couple other pieces of utility to try to slow down any execute brewing up. Twist eventually working his way in through bathroom will get cut down effectively by NVK, still holding that balcony, and now opening up a couple of the kill spots as well to maybe flush out Adapt too.
Adapt certainly in danger of not getting flushed out, but getting pinched by these multiple one-shot operators barreling on through that top floor. Filthy and Butters left in a 2vx. Shocker for a dining defense for RentFree. It seems that's how these all have boiled down every single round. C4 goes out, and it's Butters' worst nightmare. It finds not even a single bit of damage on any of the 5 members for One Shot at the moment. We have the vertical, we have the dining wall opened up, the final smoke has gone out, the C4 has gone wide. There is not much left for RentFree to do beyond take these gunfights and pray that One Shot make a mistake or leave an opening that they can exploit. Butters has this long angle looking into West Main with nobody pushing down solar stairs just yet. He's safe for the time being. Does find one. That's diffuser now dropped. Filthy gets a kill just before that. Butters can focus on this player pushing in through solar stairs. Filthy unfortunately falls. That makes Butters' job a whole hell of a lot harder. An LMG in his way. Diffuser going down. Looks like a 4-2 half for One Shot as Razor puts the final nail in the coffin.
And a good attempt by RentFree to try to slow down that push and try to play around the timer, which was really their only friend in that 2 versus 4. However, One Shot, once again, they were just remaining consistent throughout that entire round and didn't give a lot of attempts for RentFree to try to bring back the round. A 2-4 split is not horrible in the slightest when you're defending, because we all know how attacker-favored Chalet can be put in the right hands. But altogether, how those rounds got so favorable for One Shot, that definitely seemed to be the bigger problem. We saw RentFree more than willing to try to go for those 1-for-1 kills in sometimes unfavorable spots where it wouldn't be just a 50-50 gunfight. Sometimes One Shot would have the advantage in those engagements, not only from information, but sometimes having the better gun or just being in a better spot altogether to challenge that head-to-head. And because RentFree had lost bodies pretty much, I think, every single round we had RentFree lose that entry, it just made them vulnerable from the very beginning of the game, and One Shot remaining consistent in every single portion of their attacks, it allowed them to pretty much capitalize off that entry a majority of that time. But at least RentFree, they can now focus on the attack, a side they are much more favorable on as is, especially when playing on Chalet, because again, this map is very attacker favored. I think it's a third tally now to add to my report today.
Watch out, John.
In case you had forgot, I'm here to remind you, so maybe that gets me some brownie points.
I gotta say, it is pretty funny that if you are to describe the opening engagements in that previous half, you couldn't say that One Shot got the opening pick every time. You would have to say, technically, that One Shot got a favorable position every round. It's technically one round, you know.
Yeah,
more
technicality,
close in the
blah,
first
blah, blah.
15
Yeah,
seconds.
sure. Whatever you say.
I just thought that was funny. Hey, if you would've put that in a court of law, that's what you'd have to say. Thankfully, though, not only does RentFree get technically the first kill of the round for the first time in this match, it's Adapt as well, getting his first kill of the game so far, able to take down Kilo inside a trophy.
Yeah, and I guess my stat line is now completely floundered away. But hey, good kill by Adapt. Unfortunately, seems like some of that skill has now burned away. NVK able to catch Twists off guard, now eliminates the ace, but thankfully Butters is still alive, having those secondary hard breach devices if need be when attacking, maybe just to get a hatch opened up here and there. Don't really need a lot of hard destruction when you are attacking bar and gaming unless you want to get a better sightline opened up to try to burn through some of that utility. But besides that, not a big deal, more or less just an extra gun down, which for an AK-12, that is a pretty big thing to have, but at least you're still on equal footing in a 4-on-4.
Actually still alive. He's got one nade left in his pocket, in a very useful position as well, but not a friends he can rely on is slowly dwindling down as the round goes on. Not a massive sweep and massive tide in the favor of One Shot. Now 2 players and the main hard breacher gone. You still have one canopper remaining in Butters. That'll require you to get close to a wall when right now One Shot aren't letting you get very close on the top floor. Maxley does find one, cuts down Razor. Again, a very useful operator, no longer available for the defense, but with only a minute left. Razor's gotten the majority of those key barriers down, but that's the kill we were looking for. Prod removed from Blue Stairs. RentFree can now likely get the positioning they were seeking.
Well, as long as they're not aware of NVK's spot, this could be a huge way to kill anybody working down through Blue Stairs and maybe even swing onto Butters as well.
Butters pushing up. NVK's got to go huge in this position, but even then, he's worried about Blue Stairs. Maxley's holding him. He can't just swing out or the Finka will cut him down. Maxley is preoccupied. Diverts his attention and ends up losing his life. That's Diffuser as well. That's a 3K as well. NVK with the play of the round. Answer back. RentFree taking down Prod. Filthy knows somebody's behind this bar. He's got the bullets to make it work and the angle as well. Loses a hell of a lot more HP in the process than I think he was hoping for. Still 96 bullets left. Too many, too much to get done. The supply on this is incredible, but NVK, he's got the spot, he's got the Diffuser, he's got the intel, he's got the angle! A 4K to start out One Shot's defense. Hell of a play by NVK.
Fantastic discipline by the Jaeger as well. Really burning down the timer against the Finka. She had an idea that there would be someone potentially in Mudroom to set up that crossfire and help out your smoke so they could maybe only focus on 1 or 2 areas of attack and not more than those 2 locations. But being able just to wait, 5 extra seconds and having the Finka being fed information that the smoke is trying to aggress, it was almost perfect bait. Really low-hanging fruit trying to be caught, but ended up getting snapped away by NVK. Also finding the frag on Butters, and not just sitting inside a mudroom, but rotating, drying up that information, and being in a better spot to outduel Zofia as NVK still had case control. That was just really well played altogether. And once again, one shot, understanding the power spots they still need to hold while in the deficit, it went a long way. And although RentFree had a much better cleanup when they were trying to play for those cutoffs to stop the extension from coming back to site effectively, they still lost the round just based off of some dry information and not playing as well together as anticipated, probably.
Unfortunately, Maxley right there, not looking at that key angle. That was what MBK and One Shot as well needed to really crack things open. 2v3 to happen. Now moving over to Dining. A couple shifts in the operator. MBK giving the reins of the 416 and the Jaeger over to Razor. But more importantly than that, two operators. Castle from MBK and Echo from Quad. Castle, of course, to just provide a lot of barricades on that top floor. Make it a little bit more difficult. One shot, not one shot. Make it difficult for RentFree to clear. Angles they want, but more importantly, prod in that Echo. Even if early round goes terrible and Jerome is cleared, having those yokais on the site could be what they need to still keep things chaotic for RentFree.
And a good call in general for Castle, especially since you didn't see a sledge last round when you were defending, or when you had the defensive side over in on bar and gaming. Beautiful shot landed though, RentFree. To get that first entry kill in BK. Now, Gomb, at least all of his utility has been placed, so he can probably just sit on cams and, you know, still be pretty effective as a teammate altogether for the rest of One Shot. Someone charges going off, forcing Razor a little bit farther back and might even go all the way through in the rotate hole, but he still wants to try to fish for maybe that potential kill, so he won't give up too much just yet. And also because those castle barricades, he can sit pretty comfortably near that rotate if he wants to.
Prone from Hell right there. Two players trying to contend with it. Takes a hell of a long time to deal with. Finally, One Shot destroy it. But in that time, not really because of it, but just in that time, a lot has happened for RentFree. Specifically, the top wall, the heaven wall opened up, and the impact quick to deal with the Summit charges on this middle wall fails. The breach opened up. RentFree to now move on through. Still some important things left alive. Even though Swaylin is now gone, a very problematic kill with those toxic canisters off the board. Some yokais on the top floor and the bottom floor as well. Continuously relaying utility to One Shot to make plays maybe like the one that Razor's making right now. They know someone is out on that balcony, but Adapt is quickly made. They get a kill on Solar. It sails right by Razor. They might not know he's here. Adapt might be careful. There's still 55 seconds left. No point to just vault on in, but instead he'll play the safe move and walk back.
Trying to buy out any potential time. He knows that One Shot is at disadvantage. And from the spot, he could still deny the vertical. And in the meantime, the plant is going down. Prod lands one beautiful shot and a second. All of a sudden, we're on equal footing with the case dropped in the middle of the bomb site.
And they have active intel on the player inside of the hallway, but Butters is still able to navigate that. Get the kill on the Prod. The Echo, who denied the plan in the first place, but Kilo pushes on up, and Kilo falls instead. Butters does go down soon after, but a well-timed Adrenal Surge brings this back to a 1v3. A very long angle by Razor with not the best gun to make this happen. Adapt is able to finish him off, and RentFree recover from very shoddy footing.
RentFree remaining much more disciplined as well in that round, not jumping the gun and not trying to get too hasteful in that round, just taking their time and already realizing they have gained a lot, trying to force the hand of One Shot, trying to have them get overly aggressive, although Prod did land two very important frags to keep the rest of his team at a pretty good spot. It still was not enough for them. The information was still there by RentFree. They were still gathering tons of that info to make sure they knew how exactly to push in those final 30 seconds. And the double swing on that smoke to guarantee he could not get away with a single thing was beautiful to watch altogether for RentFree as well. They are still holding on, and they are still not willing to go down without a proper fight against One Shot, despite a couple of mistakes that have been made by the past.
Gotta be careful you don't let Prod get as aggressive as he did, especially moving on to basement, where we've already seen a team in this match lose a round because somebody, in this case two players, we're going to do RentFree winning round number one, able to get aggressive inside the site. Really both ways RentFree, their two defensive rounds, were because of players able to get aggressive and get some well-timed, and in the end, very impactful kills. I think RentFree is accustomed to and needs to look out. One Shot holding basement, being diligent in clearing out those players on the top floor while holding down positions like blue stairs once they get middle floor control is going to be the name of the game.
Still just taking your time as well, not feeling to be all that rush. Just to guarantee you don't have to worry about, you know, any last second flanks, perhaps maybe having someone cycle in through cams proactively too if no one's dead. Moving in final execute could go a really long way for RentFree. And speaking of which, still taking their time to spot out people like NVK to make sure they know if he's fallen back or not, if he is back up by Razor as well. So not the baddest start at all for RentFree, since they now have a really good idea as to how One Shot are trying to defend this top floor.
They're destroying some intel right now. A couple shots flying over his head, but he'll take that as a challenge, not as a warning. Bolts out the window, but Filthy gets the hell out of a dodge at the exact right time. Falls down, but now can hold the angle outside Fireplace, and once again, Razor and Filthy locked in a conflict. He will destroy the drone and play to Filthy, exactly what his game plan is. But even though that engagement was definitely the most exhilarating, actually Butters who gets the first kill, taking on NBK. Well, NBK dying 2 rounds in a row. Butters now being the first one to get in on the action.
Doing pretty good so far in that entry department. He actually found a couple in the first half, so my stat line was pretty darn incorrect. I guess that's another citation for me, but RentFree still making pretty good work as is. It seems like they want to try to set up for that eventual wine push altogether. Having someone on top of that hatch to make sure no one can properly deny that post-plant setup. Only major thing they've got to worry about is Razor. It seems like he's taking the top floor, and if he remains patient, he could find countless frags, and there goes the first one called off. Butters will now fall.
Hatch opened up. He can just look all on down. Butters walks in front of him, and also the MX4 Storm. Razor will even open up an angle on that top floor, but maybe not even to look through, just to make RentFree increasingly uncertain of the footing they've secured on that middle floor and their structural integrity for the overall push. Actually going on a solo clear right now. Knows Razor's on that top floor. He's worked his way up. Razor wish somebody might be there, but he's looking the wrong way. Maxley peeks and Maxley loses. Think LMG, and you end up losing to Razor. Unlucky right there. Not only some important utility taken down, but a venture that does not bear any fruit whatsoever. Now the Selma charge that they're trying to open up this wall with, only 30 seconds left in the 2v4. It's jammed. They can't open it up. That angle's no longer available to the attack. I say no longer available. Wasn't available in the first place. What are they to do? They've got 2 nades. They do down a key player. No longer having to worry about that blue position. With Filthy down as well, Dap just has to walk in front of a shield and One Shot take match point as a result.
And I'm so glad to have the retake still being alive and well for Razor. Reclaiming that top floor is RentFree. Once you have that first entry and once you have info that the roam game has fallen back initially, you can kind of be put at ease and begin to focus solely on going in for the execute. We saw a very big emphasis over near dining room, for example, trying to look down that hatch and maybe help break some of those pieces of utility, like the shield that can stop anyone from charging in either through, for example, the sidewall leading into wine towards that default plant, or just the back doorway as well. It's closer towards trench, but because you still had Razor up above, applying pressure in the late round, it forced RentFree to focus on multiple things at once, and eventually they ended up trying to fully struggle against Razor, as he found even more damage once Maxley ended up trying to reclaim the top floor in the pocket of RentFree. Still had to worry about the execute, and he didn't have enough utility to try to break some of those key mute jammers, for example, and Kai claws to get those walls open up and going for a proper execute. Really, everything just fell apart in the late round for RentFree. And it wasn't even because they had a poor early game. It seemed like they just got a little too comfortable in those positions and couldn't readjust quickly enough to actually get that round win against One Shot.
And, well, see if they can somehow manage to keep the train on the tracks in round 10. They need to do it 3 times in a row if they want to even take this overtime. These players have certainly had success before, even if, maybe it was one player showing up a little bit more than the others. Like the desk said, Filthy had a solid season, maybe not having the best game, but has had a solid season. Twist certainly put a lot of work into the season so far, actually having a good game. These teams, or these players, they can do it. They have to do it 3 rounds in a row. And on Chalet, hey, sure they can figure it out. You have info on one player right now. It's just somebody's feet standing in front of a drone hole. Can they make use of it? No.
I believe it was the Ayana, but
Oh, was it?
Well. It was a
just
blue
staring at
it
his
was a
own teammate?
blue outline, so I think so.
Oh, wait, you're right. Why was Maxley looking at his teammates'
Well,
Wait,
for once, I'm
John,
going to make a
John?
citation on you, Carter. It's your lucky
John?
day.
Okay, that's great. John, RentFree have 4 drones.
Yeah, that's not good. Well,
They have a Twitch, but, they have 4 drones.
yeah, that's not the best, especially since retakes have been very strong for One Shot. Again, one thing that can help enable those retakes is a lack of information and complacency. You also have a couple of Argus cams, too, but I feel like the majority of those might be used to help clear the utility, because there's Lamai and Jaeger on the board, and really no secondary... Yeah, no real burn except, maybe the smokes. But probably not, unless Philly's in a good spot to actually utilize those smoke grenades as is. But here comes that eventual util clear. Gemini trying to feed in some last-second information to make sure if anyone's actually playing on Chimney or not. And finally, That clear will just about be ready to unfold as the drone detects where Prod is playing at. And now we have all those magnets being dealt with eventually. But again, will they have enough to deal with that shield? Yes, they most certainly will. Protestant now commit to just that blue stance position.
They're able to pull up the Dawn 6 and destroy it. Maybe we'll see Razor lend to keep a barrier. No, Razor is content to just make a fortress out of his position inside a library. I mean, nobody from RentFree is on that double window. They're all pushing in front of him. Might as well stack up keep barriers in their way and make it as difficult as possible to move on in. Ooh,
wow.
Swaylen pops Filthy's head inside a main lobby. Down goes the Twitch. Some damage done on one shot side, to be sure. Swaylen and Razor both on reduced HP. They have the control more than enough to make this 5v4 very bitter tasting for RentFree. Butter's trying to throw things out of whack by creeping up the dining hallway, but with Max League down as well. Razor still holding this hatch. Stock still a valuable position for the defense. Very difficult to see how RentFree can come back from this. They get one kill. Cut down NBK. Razor still alive inside a library. Takes down one. Almost. Yes, does take down two. Drops Diffuser down as well. Right in front of one of the vertical holes made by the defense. They have the angle, the positioning, the situation, all going their way. How do RentFree come out of it? Butters takes down one. 3v3. They get one of their teammates back up, get 2 kills as well. With only 7 seconds left, they drop. What a big kill by Twist. Swaylen might have it. He's just got to survive for 2 more seconds, and he doesn't! RentFree keep it alive for the time being. 2 more rounds to close the gap.
Such a close call for one shot as well. That major lack of information allowed Razor to find such a beautiful double play, but he couldn't confirm the second kill. The case player, he ended up getting revived and was still a valuable asset to make sure it was a 2 versus 1. I believe it was Twist that was still alive, and he eventually dropped down the hatch and found not only 1 but 2 kills to close out that round as a win. And the Finka as well. If Maxley did not have any more Finka boost to bring himself back up, and if he remained DBNO, best case scenario, it would have been more time wasted by RentFree to pick him back up, but just one press of a button, he's back in life, and he's back in action for RentFree to still put on enough hurt to get the job done against One Shot. But they had such a good opening round and kept things neck and neck against RentFree.
Just barely able to keep things alive in the very final second of see if they can I guess keep it that close for 2 more rounds, but let's hope they get something a little more decisive, especially since if they do make it to overtime, they'll be starting on the attack, and a series of very close rounds, even gained in quick succession, will still not be the best trend going into overtime if RentFree is making it. Next site, they'll have to cut their teeth on will be dining, with everyone spawning over by library side, or at least 80% of the spawning library side gone. I think they might be pushing.
A very bold assumption of you, Carter. And I think this time you're correct about that. But see how effective this could be. Could you imagine they all just drop and like just go like, I don't know, games window or something? That'd be very comical. But that's not gonna happen. Throwing in Geminis, regular drones. They locate Razor. Now he's gonna fall back. But not that big of a hassle. Still alive and well. And still wasted couple pieces of util here and there. So not the worst thing at all for either side. A pretty fair trade, I would have to say. Still a couple of yellow plings coming out as well against Razor, but so far he's still alive as he can just play behind that hard wall and just has to play the waiting game to make sure no one's pushing him from off his door and to see how much more map control RentFree can gain.
Our library, but the meat and potatoes is master bedroom and office. And that is what RentFree need to open up. They'll start by opening up the office wall. They'll open that up with an exothermic. Castle barricade goes down as well. Some key angle now available to the attack and positions cleared. How will they move a little bit further? Of course, they have to move down to that bottom floor later on, but gotta take down NBK. Probably have to take down Razor on that top floor as well. They have the nades to do it. 2 sets, making 4 total. With half the round gone, gotta be quick about it.
Still having those castle barricades alive, it bought a lot of valuable time here for One Shot, and it could probably still apply in this final minute 20. An EMP blast goes out by a camera, I believe, and I believe that'll also help the K-Claw go off. Probably not, but the K-Claw goes off, allows the first exterminator to be broken, but there is a second one followed up by a grenade, so the back wall still gets opened up. But again, time, it's being pretty valuable here for One Shot, as they are really burning as many seconds as they can, and they still have that top floor presence alive and well. If they can win those 1-for-1s up here playing above, they can maybe reutilize the vertical.
Well, even if they don't, 2 C4s, 2 toxic canisters. Adapt does get the first kill onto Razor and the second onto NVK, so okay. that control and that utility down below is ever so important, especially since Swalen is on that top floor. He's one of the players on that roam. With how powerful that utility can be, he does not want to be the next one to fall. Side player's going down right now. Takes down the Yana outside, but gives away his position. RentFree know it's a 1v3 on the site. They can play comfortably. They might be able to win this. C4 goes out. It's shot midair. Twist gets the bomb off successfully. Prod now stuck between a rock and a hard place, between multiple angles held by RentFree. Swalen still has control of top floor, but it was partially seeded by RentFree, partially taken by Swalen. Now with the bottom floor, on the everything he has to deal with right now. He's got 1 kill. He's taken down 1. Only about 20 seconds remaining to get this defuse down. Twist knows his position, but he'll fall off. He doesn't have to take the angle. He can just sit back for the time being, wait for Swalen to drop. He'll make a hell of a lot of noise when he does so. They put him down to 1 HP, and Butters finally finishes him off. 6-5. 1 more round. RentFree to take us to overtime.
And it was a good play made as well by RentFree to acknowledge once they knew Swalen was up above, they could actually get even more aggressive despite that post plant being the main point of action for RentFree. They could just charge the lone Kaid, get that 1vx position like we just saw done by Twist, vaulting up above on the side plants as well to kill the Kaid. And it forced a really rough retake by Swalen despite landing some nasty shots. It was a valiant effort. But again, RentFree, they were very precise on dealing with the actual anchor setup as is. And they still had a couple players posted up above to make sure that, you know, it couldn't be retaken that easily by one shot. They had to put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, try to get very aggressive from multiple avenues, and they just were not able to in that position. RentFree getting closer and closer to potentially bring us to overtime, Carter, as they have been able to close out a lot of rounds that on paper look relatively 50-50 from the very get.
Especially that round, Adapt able to get not just 1, but 2 kills out of the 3 players in 1 shot on that top floor. Again, as you said, still a little bit close, but definitely a lot more convincing of a round, especially towards the end than what we saw in round number 10. So a good trend as we move into the final round of regulation. Win or lose for RentFree, they will have taken 1 shot all 12 rounds in. As Tanner mentioned earlier, what, especially at the beginning of the stage, we thought was one of the most anticipated games of the stage. Yep, sitting outside the trophy window right now. Thought he might just vault in for a second there, but he'll hold for the time being. Oh no, he did. He did vault in.
Yeah, formerly the top 2 teams, but still good teams as is, just not, you know, the kingpins as of now. Great entry found by Kilo, but he's quickly traded out by Twist, as I believe he went in for a run out. Yeah, his death indicator will reveal he was outside. But yeah, no, all that active utility in the hands of Maxley now gone compared to your Banshees that were already placed. I mean, that's massive. And you can still just cycle through cams. But with Zero still alive, Maxley can do the exact same thing. But you'd probably want, you know, maybe one of your more supportive players cycling through cameras and not your Finka.
And not just your Finka, not just one of your entries, but the player with a Gone 6, nades, and that 100-round LMG to make entrying a little bit easier. Traded out for that Malusi, like you said, who, oh boy, the Banshees are already down. MP5 gone, I guess. Yeah, RentFree more than half. Or sorry, 1 shot more than half. RentFree a little bit sad right now, but they still have half the round to go. They have a 4v4. Once they got into this position last time, where they were knocking on the door to Razor's home and library, knocking on the shield that Prod's sitting behind, they were able to clear them both and end up taking some useful positions.
Here comes all the flurry of utility trying to keep Prod backwards. Razor, in the midst of all this, able to help out his teammate up above. And Prod, with that shield finally gone, needs to be a little more passive in this position, but still having Razor up above, it definitely alleviates a lot of that pressure he would tend to see, and also having NVK try to back him up against this player of Butters.
Prod rotating into Mudroom. Don't know if they know how low HP Butters is, but might not matter very much as 1 shot. NVK now downed. Might be focusing on trying to revive their teammate now downed on the floor. He starts moving into the side, but that's just for a quick pre-fire. One that does not net any fruit. Swalen put down to low HP, but still wins the fight against Filthy. That leaves Adapt the only full HP member of RentFree remaining, and that equation changes very quickly. Trying to move into library to peek 3 separate Kiba barriers. Razor just drops in the process, but now 2 players in 1 shot down. One of them finished off, one of them picked back up. The man advantage re-solidified by 1 shot. Butters, he's looking into that stock, catches Razor crossing, might be able to get a 2nd kill now that NBK's revealed his position, but the Jaeger will back off for the time being, not wanting to get too aggressive. Adapt finishes him off, and RentFree make it to overtime, 3 rounds in a row. And again, it was a close one, John. but not nearly the same fashion as when this comeback started.
No, a direct 2-on-2 in that round for the most part. And also, I really thought, especially since both players on the side of RentFree were very low, that not having that finger could have been a really big issue for them, since there was no way to reset any of their HP. And if the defense had information on where they're pushing in from, a simple pre-fire, 2 shots connecting would probably put both of them in the dirt. But the same thing kind of applied for One Shot as well, only having one player on full HP, and a majority of those defenders who had gotten downed, they weren't in a spot to get revived, except for NVK, who had to deal with someone pushing in from not only the bomb side of Bar, but also someone pushing in through the gaming portion as well, I believe dropping down the hatch once they had realized that the top floor had been given up by One Shot eventually in that position. RentFree just simply putting themselves in more winnable spots and able to play a little bit better as a team in those final 20 seconds was the final hurrah for them. And now we get to see overtime, as that second half was incredibly close for both teams, and I can imagine overtime is able to replicate that exact same pattern too.
Even though they don't get 3 points, I do still believe can get first, but they need to win this game and then get all 3 in their off-stream game later. So the win here, still necessary, but
yes,
first place is not out of the reach, not out of the ground. One shot just yet. Unfortunately, they are starting out on the defense, which, as we've seen, is not the favorite side in this particular instance of Chalet. RentFree will make that fact very evident. Move to match point.
Maxley preparing, anticipating a run-out potentially, as that's how he died last round to Kilo, but it seems like no one's going to reattempt that. Information being there for RentFree this go around. Entering the building as well, that being adapt, making sure no one's playing all too aggressive in the first floor. Kilo just being spotted up by a drone is now forced to reposition to dry up some of that information. And for the most part, RentFree still keeping the exact same attack plan that we had seen a few rounds prior, except just being a little more proactive, as nothing silly has gone down just yet by their opponents.
I'm actually just creeping on up. There's a soft wall separating him and Razor right now. That they can intel in that position, they might be able to take down, but Filthy just sitting in the middle of that rappel right there, opening himself up to a big hug from Razor, and, well, thankfully isn't punished for it. He loses a little bit of HP, but Razor falls off very quickly and doesn't maybe punish Filthy for that very brave angle held outside of that office balcony. His basement defense, of course, held down all the way in the bottom, the belly of Chalet. Won't waste much time getting down there and starting to open things up.
Impact grenade goes off. The second will connect onto the first set. Selma charges. There's still one more set, so depending on where Swalen's playing at, he could actually deny this back wall from being opened up, and that actually could be completely potential. He's just in the middle of line. Here's the first Selma go off, but it's on the opposite wall. Early now in a pretty bad spot, but thankfully with Prod still having 2 key barriers, he can prolong that inevitable push from the backside of line.
Some nades going on in. Unfortunately caught by a magnet inside of the side. Maxley still has 1, and RentFree overall have 5 total, so more than enough where even if some were caught by those magnets, destroy the Kiva barriers that Prod might layer onto the breach in any potential position. There's Selma charge going off, open up the wine wall, looking into the sight. Swalen standing right in front of it, doesn't die to gunplay, dies to a nade, but only downed, and Prod can pick him back up. Nass's cover falls away, so does his chances at living. Prod now down as well. RentFree have the control they need to start moving in, not only to sight, but going for the execute. Filthy, the tip of the spear, falls to Razor's MX4. 3v3 now with Kilo getting active. Kilo getting very active inside of blue. Twist now at a loss for words inside of the site. He's got the diffuser. He can start going for the plant if he wants to, but instead of a 5v3, he actually to rely on for coverage. With an LMG, to be fair, the opportunity goes away. The bomb still goes down, but somebody rotates around. Twist comes off, gets the kill anyway, but only 1 HP. 0-2. One shot, get it with bodies to spare. Take match point to boot.
Able to play off of the aggression that we saw by RentFree once again. It was pretty much needed to get rid of a lot of that power still held in Wine, despite having those lines of sight opened up from the side portion of Wine and also the long angle we saw being held, even during that post-plant position. But once we had Wine fully cleared out, RentFree just still had to play for their lives with One Shot. They were just in the better position in Snowmobile itself, and still having Kilo alive to play around in blue and allow that looming threat to make sure that RentFree once again couldn't get any more commandeering map control to allow a very safe post-plant spot. It allowed a lot more to be manipulated by One Shot altogether. And at a point, they were able to play at a man advantage, able to tag team on the Finca for a split second, and then immediately put all their attention onto Twist once he had gotten off of that defuse, being brought down to just a sliver of HP, was in the middle of no man's land, had no fallback. He had to play for his life, similar to his teammates that were leading the charge in that final minute, and met the exact same fate as his team as well. A really good attempt by RentFree, and they had their flank on watch and they had pretty much everything accounted for, but just not clearing out a handful of spots like blue stairs, for example, and not keeping One Shot at bay for a longer period of time. It made a big difference for One Shot to have a much smoother retake.
Coincidentally, it was poor flank watch, or at least lackluster flank watch, given what ended up happening, that got RentFree their second round on the defense. The first round was a little bit chaotic. It was a 2v4. It resulted in some misplays by One Shot moving into the site. In that second round, it was RentFree taking advantage of some poor flank watch from One Shot, specifically over on blue stairs. There's some well-placed Kiba barriers and not enough utility from One Shot on the attack. Weren't able to clear it out. Twist is able to rotate up later on and get a 4K in the entire round. Something that One Shot, of course, taking advantage of it on the defense last round, cannot let happen again if they want to seal this out 8-6.
Well, RentFree trying their hardest to get as many round wins as they can for the defensive side, ending up going one of their more favorable selections in this best of one, that being Wine, by having the option to play this entire map as their own, essentially. This whole building as their own in particular. You mentioned the lack of proper flank watch, having Adapt still alive, allowing to relay all that information for Twist to go for a huge power play up in the middle of Barroom from creeping his way through blue stairs. I wonder if the same thing can be replicated once again. As of right now, though, One Shot not having to worry all that much. They haven't really tried to hassle with Adapt over in their dining room, just getting some hatches opened up in the limelight to maybe have those same lines of sight gathered as they did last time attacking this bomb site. The only major difference they have here when attacking is the fact they have no main vertical player, which could be a small issue unless they want to go in for more of a Wine style of attack, but at the moment, it seems like that will not be the case.
Moment, at least in the first half of the round, they are very focused on acquiring that fireplace control, opening up garage, opening up these hatches on fireplace. Again, they can certainly rotate, they have time, but second exothermic now being dedicated to that garage wall, the X-Pyros primarily being used to open up these hatches. Definitely seems like this is the side they want to attack. No easy kill onto Butters this time means all those Kiba barriers can go to good use, and the wall opened up, and now Butters falls.
Yeah, major kill found by Kilo. Another big issue that we had by One Shot last time attacking this bomb site, round number one, is they weren't in a good spot to get that diffuser down. Maybe having Kilo rotate in a safer spot like Snowmobile Stairs could be a saving grace for them to make sure they can put themselves in the post plant, and I believe that's what Kilo's opted to do, is I believe he just moved up into the middle floor.
Upstairs, trying to navigate a new position. Twist and Razor dueling each other on blue stairs, both losing a lot of HP, but only one of those operators can heal themselves. If anybody goes down, he can bring them back up. Kilo putting the bomb on the floor right now. Nobody's recognized. Nobody knows. The bomb goes down behind the cabinet successfully. Adapt gets active, does make it a 4v4. This is now favoring One Shot, especially in HP. Both Filthy and Twist now on low HP. Kilo backs off, moves up the staircase. He can still get an angle if he hears anybody push. Swalen finds Adapt. Low HP for RentFree, becoming ever more problematic as their man count dwindles. Twist now gone as he tries to retake the middle floor. A second player will now try to resign themselves to that duty. Filthy moving outside. It works a little better, but that allows Kilo to swing on in. 1v3 separates Maxily from a victory, and instead it's an 8-6 for One Shot, as what might have been one of the most anticipated games of the season, especially when Stage 2 started, goes One Shot's way. And first place, still within their grasp as a result.
Well, it's still a absolute beauty of a game, though. Going almost the full distance, but still going to overtime as is, and still showing a lot of great coordination, not only by One Shot, but also RentFree. They had a lot of solid rounds against some calls being made in the middle of it, try to go for more horizontal takes, getting aggressive, going for courageous plays to retake portions of the map. That's the main reason why they kept it close. They're a team that can, simulate themselves pretty well against One Shot's style of play, but having better consistency by One Shot overall and still adjusting in their own manner, in particular having Kilo actually not just plant in the middle of the breach, but plant somewhere more comfortable like those back cabinets as you have somebody watching connector for that main swing, and also having someone play on the breach to make sure no one can push in directly from blue stairs, for example. It makes a hell of a difference. And because of just those small changes we saw constantly by One Shot, they not only kept the game very close, but they ended up winning it out as is. And I guess I have to thank you, Carter. I got to rub it in your face. You changed last second, and RentFree, they almost won. but they didn't. But still, it was a great game by them. I really can't blame them, especially since they had Adapt playing, not Dexter. That was a last-second change that still almost worked. That's pretty impressive.
Hey, if they lost 7-3, it would have looked bad, but hey, they ended up losing.
Didn't look horrible, no.
So, I will take it. But as I said, towards the end of that, one-shot winning this game, even in overtime, means there is still a chance they clinch first place, but definitely a lot more factors to consider as a result into how it could play out, and maybe to expand more on that a little bit. Go back to the analyst desk to talk about one-shot's victory and its implications.
This is super interesting. And one thing I do want to touch on, and they touched on it there, was the swap in for Adapt for Dexter. Now, this was last minute. We weren't expecting it. And my question, Cookies, is did this have an effect on the game, or was this kind of a non-factor in the result?
We're gonna be waiting a while. Another dramatic pause because Cookies is not here.
Yeah, I meant seed apps, and look at me. Look, this is the second deep overtime matchup we've had. But you know what? You could have saved me, Connor, but instead you hung me out to dry.
I did indeed. Because, we could have been doing the laundry on Oregon, but instead we just saw a whole lot of basement play here on Chalet, where Snowmobile was probably the most impactful bomb site, where overall being the strongest. And he had all the kind of fun plays and shenanigans, and at the end of the day, for their attacking half, which, 3 rounds in a row is no... So much of it actually came from Butters once again. I really like their use of the zero cams to constantly get information, and it really also did facilitate a lot of the entry engagements, which maybe Dexter would have done even better with.
Tanner, should One Shot have let this get this close?
I mean, no. They had a 6-3 lead at one point, and especially in that last round, I felt like they kind of threw it. I believe it was a 4v2 or 3v2 that they probably could have closed out. The attackers had no real information. And again, the zero cams, or the gunplay coming out from Butters there on the zero, allowed them to clutch it out. And you got to give him credit. I mean, Twist came absolutely huge in this game. He had a massive 4K in round 4, huge clutch coming in at round 9. That was an impact player. So to say that it shouldn't have gone to overtime for One Shot isn't really giving the credit.
Oh, absolutely.
Swaylen was massive for One Shot that whole game, and even Kilo, like there in the last round, he got, I believe it was a 3K and a plant down. Like, it was just an absolute spectacular performance coming up from the side of One Shot.
Mm-hmm. And that's not it for them today. They do have one more, and that will be a very important question that I have for Swaylen. We'll give a little bit of an interview right now, possibly, or not possibly, the final one of this stage. Swaylen, here we are once again. I feel like we're best friends at this point, Swaylen. We've talked so much. Massive win for you guys, but it looked like you guys were going to get it in regulation, but they managed to push you to overtime.
Yeah, they definitely started to catch us off guard with a lot of things that they, in our minds, shouldn't have. So, we just had to clean that up and then close it out.
Mm-hmm. Now, you do have one more game left today, and should you get a win in that matchup, you will be pushing for first. Is that something you're talking about, or are you guys just keeping a level head and just approaching it like any other game?
Obviously it's like, it would be nice to get first. It's like our goal. But, we're just going to take it round by round and just make sure that we're ticking off those boxes and just doing our jobs.
Mm-hmm. Now, as I said, you have one more, but looking forward to next stage, what are some things that you liked about your team this stage, and what are some things that you want to see your team improve upon?
I think that we've improved a lot on consistency. Like, there's a lot of little things that people don't really see from, last stage's roster to now that we've definitely gotten a lot better at. So that's been really nice to see. And I guess we're just hoping to see that carry on and get even better at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been dominant so far. Good luck on your next match of the day. And I guess we'll talk next stage.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Yeah, a familiar face with all the victories that One Shot has racked up so far this stage. Connor, do you think they're going to be pushing? Do you think they're going to secure that #1 spot from stage 2?
I mean, the thing is, they play against an Aerial Rise team that now kind of no longer has any pressure. So I mean, Tanner could probably give you the full rundown on Aerial Arise because it feels like he has insider trading information. We should strike down all of his percentages on predictions, but
I've lost a lot on Aerial Arise. Thank
you
you
have.
very much.
So
Please
have
do that.
so have all of us over this entire stage.
And you know what? I would let Tanner give us an Aerial Rise breakdown, but we've already had 2 OTs today and another match to go, and we don't need to be here all night, Tanner. Sorry to not let you in on that one. But okay, we're gonna flip it to a quick break. When we come back, we've got the 5th and final matchup of the day. It is going to be Took the Kids taking on Gaming Gladiators, the top versus the bottom. It's gonna be an interesting one. We'll see everyone in a few minutes.